There are things about Ireland that take a long time to understand. Not because they're hidden exactly, but because they're quiet, and quiet things require a particular kind of attention to hear. Most expats spend the first year, sometimes the first 2 years, still arriving. Not settling, not belonging, but arriving. And by the time the country starts to make sense in the way that really matters, some of them are already planning to leave. I was almost one of them. This is what I wish I'd known sooner. The first thing most expats miss, and I missed it too, for longer than I should have, is that Ireland is not performing for you. Most places that receive a lot of newcomers develop a kind of orientation culture. A legibility. They present their best version early, clearly, loudly. They want you to understand them. They work to be understood. Ireland doesn't do this. Ireland is entirely itself, at its own pace, on its own terms, and it's more or less indifferent to whether you're keeping up. In the beginning, I experienced this as a problem to be solved. I tried to understand Ireland quickly, to map it, to read it, to figure out its logic and work within it efficiently. I treated it the way I'd treated every new environment I'd entered, as a challenge to be decoded as fast as possible so I could get to the part where I felt competent. Ireland resisted this approach completely. Not with hostility, with something worse. With patience. It simply waited for me to finish rushing, the way someone who has lived in a place for generations waits for a tourist to stop taking photographs and actually look at the thing they came to see. The daily life here had a texture I was too busy to appreciate at first. The mornings that moved at their own speed regardless of what I had scheduled. The conversations that went where they wanted to go rather than where I directed them. The whole rhythm of ordinary exchange operating on a frequency I kept trying to adjust to my needs, rather than adjusting myself to it. The expats who leave too soon almost always describe this as the reason Ireland was too slow, too resistant to the version of life they'd imagined building here. And I understand that description completely, because I felt it too. But what I eventually understood, and understood too late to avoid wasting a significant amount of energy fighting it, is that the resistance wasn't the problem. The resistance was the point. The second thing most expats discover too late is the real nature of Irish social connection. Ireland has a reputation for friendliness that is entirely deserved and almost entirely misleading. Irish people are friendly, genuinely, warmly, consistently friendly in ways that can feel like immediate belonging. The conversations come easily, the welcome is real, and in the first weeks it's possible to feel that you've arrived somewhere where connection will be uncomplicated and abundant. And then, slowly, you realize that there are layers. The friendliness is real. But the depth, the actual, lasting, specific knowledge of you as a person, takes time to earn here in a way that the initial warmth doesn't prepare you for. Irish friendship is not a fast-forming thing. It's a slow-growing thing. And the difference between those two things is enormous. I spent months in Ireland having wonderful conversations with people who remained, in some essential way, slightly opaque to me. Not because they were withholding, but because the culture here has a different relationship to the pace at which trust is extended. You can know someone for a year here and still be on the outside of something. And then one day, for a reason that has nothing to do with the passage of time specifically, something shifts. A conversation goes somewhere it hasn't gone before. A silence becomes companionable rather than careful. And you realize you've been let in somewhere, quietly, without announcement, without ceremony, and that this is the real thing. Not the friendliness. The friendliness was the door. This is the room behind it. Most expats mistake the door for the destination. They experience the warmth, find it genuine but ultimately somewhat surface, and conclude that Irish culture is friendly but not deep. They leave having never been let into the room. And this is the thing they discover too late, if they discover it at all. There's also something about the Irish relationship to time itself that most newcomers fight for far too long before they understand it. Ireland does not share the modern Western assumption that efficiency is a virtue in all contexts. There is a widespread, deeply held, essentially philosophical commitment here to the idea that some things should not be rushed: conversations, decisions, relationships, meals, mornings. Not because the Irish are inefficient, but because there is a collective understanding that speed has costs that the culture has decided are not always worth paying. Expats from faster-paced cultures spend enormous amounts of energy, in the first year especially, experiencing this as a problem. As a failure of ambition, or organization, or competence. I would sit in a meeting that was taking twice as long as it needed to and feel a frustration that I eventually understood said nothing about the meeting and everything about me. About the specific assumption I'd carried into the room that faster was better, that arriving at the conclusion was the goal, that the time between the question and the answer was waste. Ireland disagreed. Quietly, consistently, without ever explaining itself. And the thing I discovered, almost too late, is that the disagreement was correct. The deepest thing most expats discover too late is what Ireland does to the interior life. This is the hardest one to describe, because it's not visible and it's not dramatic and it doesn't happen on any schedule you can plan around. It just accumulates, quietly, over months and years, and by the time you can see it clearly it's already been reshaping you for longer than you realized. Ireland is a country that protects a certain kind of inner life. The pace, the quiet, the cultural depressurization of the performance and urgency that most modern life runs on, all of it creates conditions in which a different kind of interior experience becomes possible. A slower one. A more honest one. One that has space in it for things that the faster life didn't. Most expats arrive here having been running at a speed that has made a lot of things invisible to them. Not through laziness or lack of care, through the simple arithmetic of limited attention. When you're moving fast, you process the surface of things. You have to. There isn't time for more. And over years, that becomes the only depth you can access, the surface depth, the easily articulated, quickly processable version of your own experience. Ireland strips that back. Not immediately, not by announcement, not through any particular experience you could point to and say, there, that was the moment. But gradually, by creating a context in which the surface is no longer rewarded and the slowness is, something else starts to become available. I started to notice things about myself that I hadn't had access to in years. Not dramatic revelations, small things. The specific quality of an afternoon that I would previously have moved through without really experiencing. The difference between thinking about a feeling and actually having it. The things I genuinely wanted, as opposed to the things I'd been wanting because they were the appropriate things to want at my age and stage. These are the things expats discover too late. Not because they couldn't have been discovered sooner, but because Ireland doesn't offer them immediately. It offers them after you've been still long enough, and patient enough, and genuinely present enough to receive them. And the ones who leave before that happens, and many do, because the process of getting there is uncomfortable and unmarked and doesn't offer any reassurance that it's leading somewhere worth going, they leave carrying the version of Ireland they arrived with. The green fields and the rain and the friendly people and the pubs. Beautiful, real, true, and almost entirely incomplete. I almost left with that version too. I was booked to leave. My mind was already half elsewhere, already constructing the narrative of Ireland as a chapter that hadn't quite worked out the way I'd hoped. And then something happened. Something ordinary, I couldn't tell you exactly what, it was less a single event than a particular quality of an afternoon in late autumn. The light was doing something specific. I was walking somewhere I'd walked 100 times. And I had the sudden, quiet, entirely unreasonable sense that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not forever. Not without complication. Not resolved into some easy belonging. But here. Present. Mine, in the particular way this country makes things yours, slowly, quietly, without asking permission. I cancelled the flight. I don't know if that was the right decision in any objective sense. But it was an honest one. And Ireland, more than anything else, taught me the value of those. If you're somewhere in the middle of this, in the fighting the pace stage, or the wondering if it's worth it stage, or the almost booked the flight stage, I want you to know something. The thing you're looking for is not on the other side of leaving. It's on the other side of staying long enough to stop looking. This channel exists for that conversation. Subscribe if you want more of it. And leave a comment below. Tell me where you are in the process, whether you've discovered the thing I'm describing or you're still waiting for it. I'll read every one. And I'll be here.